Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us yet again for another webinar from the Ability series. Today, we'll be talking about how technology can improve outcomes for children with special needs, technologies for academic and non-academic skills. This session will be conducted by Mr. Balaji Venkatesan, who is the co-founder of Ability. But let us give a couple of more minutes for more of our friends to join us. Till then, enjoy the good music. Thank you so much. Looks like most of you have joined us. And for those of you who have joined us just now, I would like to repeat today's topic for the webinar is how technology can improve outcomes for children with special needs. We'll be discussing technologies for academic and non-academic skills with none other than Mr. Balaji Venkatesan, who's also the co-founder of Ability. I'll tell you guys more about him, but before that, let me give you all a quick and brief introduction about Ability. For us as an organization, all carers of children with special needs are at the center of our universe. Our mission is to give every child an opportunity to thrive. And how we do it? By making resources more accessible, affordable, and effective for everyone. And yes, we need the help of technology and collaboration with caregivers like you all, because we truly understand that technology alone is insufficient. You can access, we bring to you a host of other support systems also, such as community and resources, like I already mentioned. You can access the resources for free on the Ability platform by visiting app.ability.com and clicking on this resources tab over here. What you can also do is check out the link being shared in the chat box right now. It will take you straight to the resource listing page of Ability, where you can find hundreds of useful resources from various experts around the world. Because why we do that? Because we truly believe that everyone should be given the opportunity to enable the best possible chance of discovering the child's true potential. Also, you can access resources and useful videos from Ability by subscribing to our YouTube channel. It has hundreds of useful videos from experts around the world. And you can also follow us on Facebook to never miss an update about Ability. The links to both of these channels and page is being shared in the chat box right now. And if you want to check out the upcoming schedule for Ability events, you can again visit app.ability.com and click on the events tab here. This page has the list of all the upcoming webinars and workshops scheduled by Ability, and it also has the list of all the past sessions which are now available under the on-demand category. What you need to do is simply log into your Ability account to be able to access or register for any of these events. If you have already registered for any of the past webinars of Ability, you must already have an Ability account. So just enter your username and password here, and there you go. You can click on the register now button after logging in, and that process is that easy for registering for any of the webinars. And if you wish to register for any of the workshops, you can click on this orange button over here. That will make you an Ability member. If you're not already an existing Ability member, you will need to fulfill small formalities, but that is pretty easy. And if you're, why you should attend Ability workshops? Well, because all these workshops are being organized across different learning paths, which are specially designed by experts from around the world along with Ability team. These learning paths don't just cover the different conditions of special needs, but also different behavioral challenges, speech and language related challenges, motor skills, remedial education, and many more. Inside these learning paths, what is covered is the essential knowledge, strategies and interventions, different assessment tools, and also relevant case studies and activities related to these learning paths. If you're thinking of becoming an Ability member, now would be a very good time because we have recently launched the free trial month for Ability. That means you can become an Ability member for free simply by clicking on this claim your free trial button over here. The link to this page is also being shared in the chat box right now. Please do save it if you wish to become an Ability member for free and click on it later maybe. Or for those of you all who are already Ability members, you can get an additional month free for your Ability membership subscription by referring Ability membership to other friends of yours. When they pay for Ability membership, you get an additional month for free. That's exciting, right? And also, you get to offer them a free month. So the offer is very attractive. Please do check it out. And now, without further ado, coming to our speaker for today, a lot of you must have met in person. A lot of you must have attended his past sessions. He is a technology enthusiast, Mr. Balaji Venkatesan, the co-founder of Ability. He has more than 25 years of international experience in business technology, process or product design, behavioral change, emerging technologies, healthcare, and case management. He is also one of the co-organizers for Singapore Futurist Groups. He is really enthusiastic about technology and for the cause that we all are really engaged about, that is helping children with special needs. So that makes him the perfect person to talk about today's topic. And without further ado, I would request Mr. Balaji to please take over.
Thanks a lot, Swati. Thank you everyone for joining today. Today we wanted to talk about how technology could improve outcomes for children with special needs. And this is an area of passion for all of us at Ability. And this is something that we wanted to share with all of you. So today's webinar, we are going to cover in 3 different sections. In the first part, we are going to talk about what are some of the exciting technologies that that can transform everything that we know about special needs in the coming years. The second section that I want to spend some time on is the mindset that we can adopt to get the best value out of the technology and not let it hurt us. So that finding the right balance. And the last section, we would talk about some of the current technologies that already are available that you could download by and use that has that benefits children with special needs, but also the caregivers of special needs children. So that is the the larger agenda that we want to talk about today. First of all, what is possible is fast expanding. Right. I think this is, this is something that we forget because 10 years ago, doing like a video call with, with 1,000 people across many different countries was not possible. Right now it is possible. Imagine if COVID happened 10 years ago, I don't know if we could have done the online classes that we were able to do now. So, every year, what is possible is fast expanding. And sometimes because it happens in, bit by bit, we kind of don't recognize how much things change, right? And if you look at what is causing this change, there are a bunch of different technologies, artificial intelligence, genomics, 3D printing, nanotechnology, virtual reality, robotics, prosthetics, brain-computer interface, all sorts of these technologies change quite dramatically at a speed that was never before seen, right? All of these are really progressing very fast. Not only they're progressing fast, but they're also converging, right? So what does that mean for us? So effectively, it's predicted that in about 10 to 15 years, the prosthetic arms somebody is going to get is going to be better than the normal arms, right? So if I have a prosthetic arm, I'm going to be able to do things that a person with a normal arm is not able to do, right? And the same is predicted to happen for all the limbs, vision, hearing, and so on, right? The physical aspects. The cognitive aspects are it's going to take a little longer, but we already see very encouraging signs. And I would show some of those in this webinar, right? So this is a really exciting time. We are kind of getting to a point where we are going to beat the normal human capability, right? So it's going to change how we look at disability and special needs and all of that very differently very soon. So these are some of the companies that are on the cutting edge. On the top, you see like prosthetic arms and legs, and these are some of these are in fact older, and this is improving very fast, right? And this is how we are going to see functionality that is really powerful, better than the normal arm, right? Like imagine the phone that we had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and the phone that we have today. The cost has not increased that much, but the functionality has increased a lot. In 10 years down the line, we are going to have some amazing capabilities in our phone. That is going to be true for a prosthetic arm. That is going to be true for a lot of what we see here. On the top right, what you see is a bionic lens. So you could kind of remove your lens and put this lens. It increases your vision by 3 times, right? But vision is more than the lens. There are so many different layers to vision, and there are companies working on each of these layers to improve, replace, restore, and extend functionality that someone has. Right, the same thing is happening to hearing aids. Hearing aids are getting better and better and better. So at some point of time, it's going to do better than having the normal hearing. So for example, in this case, the Levo Edge, it not only can improve the hearing of somebody who is hearing impaired, but it also translates live in any language. So I could be talking to anyone. I could be understanding anyone speaking anytime, right? I'll be able to adjust where I want to focus my hearing, and many such functionalities. We talked about cognitive difficulties. So there are 2 companies at the frontier here, but there are many, many more companies. By no means these are just the 2 companies. One is Neuralink, where you see the N1 implant. So this is recently launched, and what's happening here is they are getting into FDA trials pretty soon, right? These implants are going to be first used for patients with Parkinson's and so on. But over time, the vision for this company is to, affect and, change outcomes for children with autism and other neurocognitive difficulties, right? So we would be able to restore function, change, and, augment functions. On the left, on the left bottom, what you see is like this helmet, which is like a really powerful device that kind of understands what's happening inside the brain in real time. The goal of this company is a child or anyone who who we want to understand more could wear this, and they can go about their normal day-to-day stuff, and we can understand exactly what is happening and how we could help them really well, right? And these are completely new stuff. This type of data we did not have before, right? So if you want to understand how the brain is for a child with autism, you need to go do imaging, and it's done once in a while. It is not a good representation of, it's a snapshot instead of a continuous data. And more and more technologies like this are going to help us understand exactly where the challenges and how we could fix them, and not only how to fix them, we could go beyond them, right? So this is really, really exciting time, and some of them are already here and they're fast improving. Some of them are in the lab, and they're coming to the market pretty soon. For example, these helmets are launched last week in a beta setting. So they launched 200 helmets to different people to kind of start getting initial data. So really exciting times overall. So if you look at the broader technologies, there are like a bunch of technologies that are really, really interesting, right? So there is AI, which all of us have heard by now, and we know already. We are, every day AI is helping us. If you tag somebody's picture in Facebook, AI is helping to identify who that person is, so that it automatically tells you who it is, right? Or it guesses most of the time, right? If you look at translation, it's done by AI. There are like hundreds of these AI applications which are already affecting our lives, and this is going to, the speed at which it's improving is really exciting. Data science and blockchain. So these are some of the technologies that are about data. How do you store, analyze, and extract insights from this data? And this is, these are technologies that are starting to affect how we think and do things today, but give 5 years, it's going to be really huge. It's not just going to be affecting special needs children, but it's about everything about our life, which means the world will be a very different place, right? And again, if you connect sensors and smart assistants and virtual reality with artificial intelligence, we could personalize the world for an individual exactly the way for their optimum performance, right? So we will talk more about it later, but I just want to give you an overall sense of the kind of technologies that are available. And these are like technologies that are on the outside looking at data and helping things. But there are also technologies like what we saw with Neuralink, like the brain interface technologies, but also being able to do surgery at a genetic level, being able to do regeneration of the neural cells, regeneration of the various tissues and muscles and organs, using stem cells, and being able to connect like a prosthetic or like an exoskeleton connected to your brain, so that the prosthetic, it kind of acts like your arm, right? So these are things that are happening, which is going to help restore and go beyond the normal human capabilities, right? So I think a lot of these things are happening, and these are happening very fast, right? And we are preparing the children we care for a future that is coming up in the next 10, 15, 20 years, right? And we need to have a sense of how the world is going to look like in the next 10, 15 years, because that's what we are preparing the children for, right? And we have, as human beings, we have a tendency to overestimate what can happen in 1 year, but we largely underestimate what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years, right? So this is a cognitive bias that we need to be mindful of, because this is what's going to affect what we are going to teach, what we think is important, and what sort of future we are imagining for the children, what sort of aspirations we have for the children. So typically, right, because we make some predictions about the future, and we think that we are going to be here in the next 10 years. But because of these various technologies, and we can't really compute how it's going to cumulatively affect the overall outcome, we miss this gap, right? We have an error in our judgment of what will happen in the future, right? So we think we are going to be here, but we would actually end up here. So this big gap in what we expect the world to be and what the world is a big surprise factor. And by working, by following these technologies, by actively thinking about it, we can reduce that gap, right? If not eliminate that gap, because then that will affect the way we think about the curriculum, affect the way we, identify what we need to teach and help the children with special needs and disabilities, right? So, the point that we want to cover over the next few slides are like, when things are changing so fast, how can we think about this, right? Like, I am a parent, I have a busy life, I have a child with special needs, I'm an educator, I'm very busy with what I'm doing, and technologies are changing very fast. So how do I think about this? So over the next few slides, we will talk about some of the key concepts that we want to, consider as we think about the future. So if you see, there are with expectation, with aspirations, there are, two types of danger. One danger is we set very low expectations. So when we set very low expectations, we actually, it can be quite harmful because when the expectations are low, we are not going to even try, right? And particularly for children with special needs, if we set lower expectations, then you already have drawn the boundary of where the child can go, right? And that's quite a dangerous thing to do. On the other side, we could set very unrealistic expectations, which is not exactly appropriate for the child, and we could also harm the child, right? And particularly when the disability is invisible, when somebody has learning difficulties or learning disabilities, then there is a risk of pushing the child in a direction that is not appropriate for the child, right? So there are like these two types of dangers that we need to be careful of, and find that balance between these two, and have expectations that are inspiring and motivating for ourselves and the children we care for, right? And that's very possible, and this path is getting bigger and bigger, so we should be mindful of this. So this is concept one. So there is a beautiful quote by Atul Gawande. He was talking about how we want different things for ourselves and for others. For people we love, we want them to be safe. For ourselves, we want autonomy, we want freedom, right? This is why when we advise people, particularly if we have older parents at home, when you tell them something, you are thinking about their safety. They are thinking about their own freedom. They want to be able to do what they want to do, right? The same thing is true for children with special needs. So we should be mindful of being overprotective, yet being reasonable, at the same time allow and provide the space for the freedom, the expression of these children, and encourage and manage this, right? And I'm kind of talking about in the context of technology, because more and more things are going to be possible for these children. So in the old world, we had like a few different peaks in life, right? So the dream for a parent would be like their children become like a doctor or an engineer, or get a good job, and there are only few different peaks that are available or considered great. But now, as we've already seen, there are more and more new peaks. There are YouTube celebrities. There are people who go to talent shows in TV and become famous. There are all sorts of careers that we did not have 10 years ago have become really big careers, right? But what's going to happen over the next many years is that all sorts of new opportunities are going to come up. And technology is going to enable this in a big way. And when we look at for children with special needs, this is a very important consideration, because in the past, we had a very few options of careers. So we had to adapt and sometimes, compromise on what is possible. But now, for every type of different abilities, there are different things that you could do, and technology is going to make this easier and easier. So as parents and educators of children with special needs, we are only limited by imagination to a great degree, right? If we can understand the new possibilities, like how much a child could do with computers, and we already know and see that children are so comfortable with mobile phones, and they're able to do a lot of things that we cannot do, right? And this is an indication of how these kids would actually adapt to all sorts of different technologies and actually excel at this, right? And which also means new opportunities, new careers, and new ways to lead a fulfilling life that creates contribution for others. There is this beautiful a passage in Alice in Wonderland, this conversation between Alice and the Queen. And Alice was saying that there is no use trying, one cannot believe in impossible things. And the Queen basically says, I think you do not have much practice. And, and that's the advice that we should take, because as more and more things become possible, we should actually practice to kind of think, hey, is this possible? And sometimes when you research, you'll find out that actually it's possible, and more so with time. Right. So the way we have been looking at disability, in the past is, we kind of think that a person with disability, let's say, if I don't have limbs, I have to use a wheelchair to move around. So I am here, and the average person is here, and an Olympic level athlete is here, right? So, but the future, as technologies come up, what we are going to change the structure quite a bit. A person with disability is here, the peak human is here, the average human is somewhere between, and all of them with technology is going to be here, right? And technology is going to, level the playing field for many people, and it's already doing it in many cases, but it's going to do more, right? More and more. So, and once you have technology augmenting yourself, it further increases the possibility, and we have a very interesting world coming up. And these are, for different challenges, it's going to take different amount of time, but the concept itself is very important for us to grasp, because in 10 years, 20 years time, a person with disability today would have erased that disability in many cases, right? So we can be a lot more hopeful, and we need to work together and pursue this hopeful future together, right? Because technologies are going to make this very possible. And our attitude towards technologies is something for us to consider, right? When the technology was invented, when we were born, right, we kind of think it is part of the natural world, right? Nobody would think like house is a technology, or clothes are technology, or like even wearing like a spectacle is technology, right? We kind of, or a watch is a technology. We don't think these things are technology. We think it's part of the natural world. But when technologies are invented when we are like 15 to 35, when our age is 15 to 35, we think, oh, wow, this is really exciting. This is revolutionary. I think this is great, right? And when we kind of cross 35, and when new technologies come up, we think this is against the natural order, because that's not something which we are used to, right? We have lived in a world for 35 years without this technology, and then we start to think this is not how it should be, right? In fact, if you go and read the criticism against printed books in the 1500s, people were very critical of books. People were saying, printing books and giving this is actually spoiling youngsters, and it is not good for them, So if you go and look at the history of many of the technologies, there is always this initial skepticism and criticism for technologies. But this was okay in the past, right? Because there are not many technologies that would come up in one's lifetime, right? If I was born in 1500s, maybe there's one or two new things happened in my lifetime. But we are kind of in a world now where 10 new things will happen every year. So as educators and parents particularly, if we need to learn how to adapt to this new world, because we might become the limit for our children, right? And the way we can deal with disability are like three broad ways, right? Three broad strategies of dealing with disability. One is we can adapt to it, right? So I can live with that disability by kind of making some adjustments, right? But live with that disability. Or I can overcome partially or fully some functionality by using tools, right? And and the ultimate is to be able to restore function. Like for example, LASIK, I would go do a surgery and I no longer need my tool which I was using to overcome my sight problem, right? So that type of restoration and extension of new functionality, functionality that goes beyond human being, is starting to happen more and more, right? Over time, we are kind of going to move from having to live with disability to increasingly overcome partially or fully, to restoration and augmentation, right? So that we can go beyond. This is the path we are going to take. And for the children we care for, we should actively look at what's happening in the space, so that we can benefit from it quickly then later, right? So these are like some of very exciting technologies in the that's going to come up in the future, and some of the stuff that are appearing here. But let's talk a little bit about what are some of the current issues that we face in caring for children with special needs, as educators and parents, right? Um, so we have a challenge in healthcare and education, where the knowledge is constantly leaking. So let me explain what that means. So let's say if I'm a teacher or a special educator, I'm working with the child and I do something that works really well. I was expecting the child to progress in 3 months, but I kind of found a way where the child made very quick progress. This knowledge that I have found, this new insight that I have found, is very hard to communicate to everybody else in the industry, everybody else, every other special educator, right? The same way, if I make a mistake in my intervention design, in my sequence of these interventions, or the choice of resources, the same thing, right? I can't communicate this to others, right? But if we are able to capture this knowledge and communicate, then we can become very good special educators very quickly, right? So this is a very important aspect. This is one area which is going to change very quickly with the coming technologies. As we are able to capture this data and understand and analyze this, we are going to make changes, and we quickly, and we can share this with every person, right? If I have to take a good picture, like 30 years ago, 50 years ago, I need to be trained by a very good photographer. And it will take a long, many years of practice to be able to take a good picture. But that's no longer the case, right? I just point and click. A lot of my errors are fixed by the technology. It automatically adjusts for red eye, it automatically adjusts for shake, it automatically adjusts for all the things. And you can change it after you have taken the picture also. So things like that is going to happen in special needs as well, in special needs education as well, where we are able to capture this knowledge, and we are going to be able to make this available to everyone, so that mistakes are not made many times, and good ideas and insights are spread throughout the system, so that it doesn't take many years to become a great special educator. We can become great special educators very quickly, right? So this is one area. The second area is the one size fits all type problem. And one size fits all is not, it's a complex issue. For example, it's very understandable in a class of 40 children, it's very hard to personalize for every child. But even when I'm doing one-on-one, the methodology that I have, the tools I have, the resources I have, are created for for many children, right? It's not personalized at that level. And this is something that's going to change very dramatically as well. We are going to be able to personalize not just the instruction, but the resources we use. Based on the data, we could kind of set the right pace. We could set the right next exercise for the child. We could set the right level of activities. We could start to personalize at all these different levels, which is going to have huge implication in terms of the speed of progress that we are able to see, right? And as a special educator, or as a therapist, or as a parent, there are, it's very hard to decide when to do what, how long, how much. if I'm not seeing progress, should I continue? Should I change? There are many complex questions that somebody has to answer. And particularly if I'm new to this, it's, that much more harder, right? If I don't have a good mentor, if I have good guidance, it becomes really difficult, right? And this is another area. If we kind of capture the knowledge instead of letting it leak, we can make this available to everyone, so that I can start to be very productive and effective much early in my career. And as for parents as well, right? Already we see that through the parents forum and so on. I ask a question in a forum, somebody answers, they have learned something, they've already passed to me. I don't have to go through a painful process of learning that, right? So that's how we improve, how we do as a species. And this is not different in this space. And we also would notice that particularly caring for children with special needs, it's not, it cannot be done by one expert. It takes multiple experts at different times to be able to do it, right? And technology is going to help that process. Some of these expertise could be converted into technology and made available. Some of this could be mediated through like online and remote interventions, so that you can bring all the experts at the right time, at the right place. And on top of all, like finding the right resources, being able to customize those resources and so on, can become easier and easier if we approach it correctly, right? So these are the potential of technologies, to kind of summarize everything that we have spoken about. And a lot of this potential is very immediate. In the next few years, this is going to be real, right? And as ability, this is something that we are passionately looking at. So how do we make this possible, so that the struggle and the pain that a parent and a special educator faces in dealing with making progress and making all these decisions, can we make it simpler and simpler, is what we are looking at. So how do we find the appropriate use of technology, right? Because many of you may be already asking, I'm not looking at the chat box, but maybe many of you are already asking or thinking, hey, aren't there any risks here, right? Of course, there are risks. So there is opportunity and there is risk, right? So, I'll give you two scenarios. Let's say there is a child with dyslexia, and by using a few different apps, you could actually speed up how the child overcomes that difficulty, right? One approach is, I find those apps, quickly try different apps, see what works for my child, and provide those apps so that my child is able to make that progress quickly. Right. On the other side, if I don't do that, I take the opportunity away from the child, so that progress is going to take much longer and painful. On the other side, there are risks, right? Child could get addicted to the mobile, to looking at videos in the phone, playing games in the phone. So that's kind of the other side of the risk, right? So we kind of have to find, as this is a new tool available to us, and how to use this tool is something that we need to learn, right? For example, when mobile phones first came up, every time you go to a cinema theater, there'll be always somebody's phone ringing, right? So we see less and less, because as a society, we have learned how to use this better. The same thing is true for these technologies also, where initially maybe we don't know how to exactly use it, but over time we together learn and know how to manage it, so that it doesn't become a burden, but it's actually a very powerful tool, right? And this is the balance that we need to learn. And this is not something that is immediately available as some magic pill, right? And the right answer is not no mobile phone, right? Or no technology is not the right answer. It's actually a dangerous answer, particularly as more and more technology come into play. One of the examples I would like to give is, let's say if I'm running a shop, 30 years ago, my competitor was using calculator. I'm not using a calculator. No big difference, right? It's not going to affect my business in a big way. But like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, my competitor is using a computer to kind of keep the tally of all the stocks and the account, the money and so on, and is able to take better decisions. Then I'm kind of losing a little bit of edge between that shopkeeper and me, right? So I'm going to lose out something. But in the future, if that shopkeeper is using robots, is using artificial intelligence, if it's going to make this way more sophisticated, then I would completely lose out. So the difference in the past versus in the future is very big. Not understanding the various technologies, not using them wisely, could make a huge difference between two children, right? And particularly for children with special needs, technology can make a lot of things possible, which was not possible before, right? So we should be very mindful, and we should really look at how to best use these technologies, because they can make a huge difference. Even though it's early days, the apps are not always great, but we need to learn, right? Whatever is the current situation, we need to learn and use them well. So like we kind of to summarize where technology could help, it could help to adapt, personalize, remember, suggest, it could do a lots of really cool things, right? But there are some areas where it cannot help, which is the very important job that cannot be replaced, right? The care that we have for the child, the goodwill we have for the child, the motivation that we can provide, the inspiration we can provide, that is going to be very hard to replace, right? And this, we know that a teacher who's average but cares a lot is going to have a much bigger impact than a teacher who doesn't care but knows a lot, right? We already know this to be true. And what technology is going to do is it's going to enable, if I am like a very poor teacher, technology is going to make me a good teacher. But if I know how to care, motivate, and inspire, the technical issues can be solved easily, right? But the care and motivation and the inspiration cannot be solved easily, right? And this is super important, so that we can focus on the right things, right? As teachers, as special educators and parents, we don't want to be doing tedious stuff like filling forms and doing paperwork, because that's not where the value is, or we don't find it joyful. Those are things that technology can do. The interaction with the child, the care for the child, the connection with the child, that technology cannot do, and we can get better and better at that. Right. So there are, I want to talk about the current applications available, and we're going to do it this way. So first of all, mobile phones, now everyone has it, and children love it, and children are really good at it. So just by exposing the mobile phone, we already see how they take up and how it works. It's very important to try different apps and become comfortable, right? The app may or may not work immediately, right? It's almost like asking the question, what medicine to take? But what medicine to take is a very hard thing, right? You got to diagnose, you got to understand exactly where the challenge is and what you need now, and provide that medication, right? In the area we are working on with children with special needs, there are slightly different needs between different children, right? Not all apps would work for everyone, right? So it's very important as parents and educators to try different things, right? And as we learn better and better, we would become good at using these tools, right? I'm quite sure a lot of us download different worksheets and see what works. We need to do the same with apps, right? If I can download a worksheet online and try it with the child, I can also download an app and try it with the child, right? It's super important. And finding the right apps is a question of experimentation. So continuously experiment, learn, and teach each other in the community. So this is the fastest way we can all learn how to get better and better at using technology, right? So this is a very important thing. And there are thousands of apps. Some of you might all have already explored this sufficiently. There are thousands of websites and mobile apps, right? There is an app for everything, right? There are apps for improving communication, alternative communication for children who are nonverbal or have difficulty communicating. There are apps that helps in emotional development. There are apps that help with life skills. There are apps with help with reading, writing, apps with which help on numeracy, improving the, working on sensory integration, to track progress and keep a diary. And so there are apps for a lot of these things, right? And one may not need all the apps all the time. So it's actually good to download an app, try it for a few days. If it works, keep it as long as it's useful, and delete it and get another app. But this is a very important part, particularly from an intervention perspective, that we need to use different apps, like we use exercise and worksheets and stuff that we download or we create ourselves, right? So that's how we should look at apps. The second area that is becoming really interesting is virtual reality, right? With the current technologies. So with virtual reality, you might have, a lot of you would already know, there are a range of different devices, right? At one end of the spectrum, there are devices, like the one you see here, the red one. It's very inexpensive, right? It costs you like $5-6 for participants from India. It's like less than 500 rupees, or probably even less. You can slide your mobile phone in and download a virtual reality application, and then you can get the child to experience this in virtual reality. The experience is not fantastic, but there are some really good apps for that. On the other end of the spectrum, at a cost of a mobile phone. So this is a new virtual reality device that was launched a couple of months ago by Facebook, called Oculus Quest. And this is, you don't need any device, any computer like in the past. You can buy this device, put it on, and it kind of can provide a very rich learning experience, a very rich, a lot of people use this to play games, but also to do exercises and all sorts of other things. And it's multiplayer, so it can connect to multiple people, and it's really, really interesting possibilities. So the fact is, if 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if somebody told you would buy a device for 50,000 rupees and carry it everywhere, you would not have believed it, right? We are starting to do more and more of that. And the good thing is, these devices like this were like 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, or $2,000, $3,000 only 4 years ago. The prices have come down, and the prices will come down further and make it accessible to everyone. So, and virtual reality is really powerful as a tool for children with special needs. This is a quote from, so I have put the link. When you get the slides, you'll be able to go to the link and read in a bit more detail. So game-based learning is possible in virtual reality. It's really powerful, and it creates a very memorable visual kinesthetic experience for children with special needs, so they can make progress much faster, right? Explore virtual reality apps. So these are some examples. There are so many more, but these are some examples, right? So the Class VR and Inclusive TLC, these are some of the apps that you could use with a $5 device. You can put your mobile phone in and subscribe to one of these services, and you would have a very rich learning experience for the child, right? And there is Google has launched something called Google Expeditions, and there are hundreds of experiences that you could experience in a device like the $5 device that I was talking about. So many very engaging experiences are available, and this can the important thing with virtual reality is, let's say if I want to teach skills for the child to go to a shop. So currently the way to do it is we have to take the child to the shop, teach the child how to count money, and make the transaction, and come back. In virtual reality, we could make all of this possible without leaving the home. So the child can practice a lot of these real world situations in virtual reality. And, then it becomes very comfortable, right? Then when the child is in the real world, it's not that difficult because child has experienced this before. Right. And so this makes a huge difference, not just the game-based learning, which I was talking about, but also to be able to create an environment that is appropriate. That is, for example, if I have autism, I can set up a virtual environment which is not overloading my senses. Then I can be at my best. I can actually do better than others in an environment like that. Right. So those are some of the huge opportunities with virtual reality. The last section here is robots. Now there are more and more robots coming to the market, and robots particularly very valuable in improving the social interactions, reducing shyness, and building the social skills for children with special needs. I just put 4 here, but there are many more robots. And currently, the prices are quite high, but this again, like many other technologies, the prices would come down over time. And there's a lot of research in terms of how these robots have helped across different skills. For example, the physical skills, the cognitive, emotional, social, across all of this, there are these robots are making a huge difference, right? So that's that's the opportunity, and these are technologies that are already here and coming soon to every one of us, as it becomes more and more affordable, as it becomes accessible near us. We are going to be able to benefit from all of this, right? We will kind of show some specific mobile apps during the Q&A. I would say, like, send your app requests, right? So I want an app for X, and we will try and answer the best as we can, not just now during the Q&A, but also subsequently, because this is an area that we are very passionate about, and we think technology is can be a good force in making progress, right? So so that kind of brings to the end of my presentation. Swati, over to you.
Thanks a lot. The chat box says that this was a very different and unique topic, and you have offered the audience really interesting and informative session. So thank you so much. Before I proceed for the Q&A session, I would like to remind our attendees that if you wish to attend or opt for the free trial membership from Ability, please check out the link being shared in the chat box right now. What you can also do is refer your friends using the same link after you have yourself registered for the membership, so that you can extend your Ability membership for free. Also, if you wish to attend the upcoming webinar from Ability on the topic, what is ASD and what works and why, please do register using the link being shared in the chat box. Or if you wish to register for upcoming workshop, which is on effective techniques to teach addition and subtraction to children with special needs, you can also register for that using the link being shared. All of these are interesting opportunities where you will get to learn a thing or two. So don't miss an update from Ability. And if in case you're facing difficulties in finding these links which are being shared in the chat box, please do write to us using support@ability.com. We'll be more than happy to share the links in person with you all. Okay, moving to the Q&A segment, sir. Everyone in the audience is really intrigued and interested in knowing about the different apps that you were talking about. So the first question has been asked from Cheryl, Farseen, and multiple others. If you could answer them, what are some of the technologies and apps that can be incorporated in online classes? During these pandemic times, online classes is the way to go about it. So if you could suggest some technology or app.
So, I mean, with online, the interactivity, with the online sessions is something that is of interest, and I think more and more people are working on this space. Besides the whiteboard that we have, besides the polls and the quizzes we have, there are tools like Kahoot and Mentimeter, and there are like a few tools. We will try and send you some of these links, which can be used to create a much better interaction during the online classes. So this is a developing space, and you'd see that very soon, even like Google Meet and Zoom would start to add more and more features in this space, right? So for the last year, particularly with the explosion of these online classes, the focus has been really reliability, because delivering high quality video interaction is quite a difficult thing with low bandwidth. And that was the focus for the industry, but it is changing. And I think people will start to focus more and more of how to improve interactivity in these sessions better.
Sure. There are a lot of questions coming up, both from the live chat and the questions that we have received in advance, for apps to help children with reading difficulties or dyslexia for that matter. So if you could share some options for the audience present here today.
So, let me share my screen again. So I have kind of, opened a few tabs so that we could look at some of the apps that are available. So this is an app called Voice Dream. It kind of does, text to speech, which kind of helps to read better. So this is more for ADHD or having difficulty to read. So, I mean, why don't I do this, Swati? So let me go through a bunch of different apps, right? Across the board, which might answer, a few different questions in the space, right? So let me start by, this tool, right? So I'm kind of starting with the visual impaired, right? So this is kind of like a device and a mobile app. Like a walking stick, but has got a lot of sensors, because one of the challenges with a typical stick is I can know only, when there are any barriers or hurdles, below my knees. But if there are challenges, above, I can't see, right? So this tool kind of helps that. Plus, it kind of guides people, if you can say where you want to go, and then it can map the path, and then it can guide you with voice along the way. Currently, if you have to, instead of having to hold the phone, you don't have to hold the phone, right? So the stick takes care of seeing what is happening in front and communicating that effectively, right? So this is one really interesting option for visually impaired. The second one, this is a very interesting idea. So this is not available in India, but the way this works is I kind of use my mobile phone. I connect with somebody who can see through the camera and then guide me as I walk. As if I'm visually impaired, I could actually get somebody's assistance remotely, and then they will get me where I need to go, and then they drop off. Right. So this is a very interesting service, and it's kind of big, thanks to WhatsApp and being able to do video calls live. So I could basically show what I couldn't see, but somebody could see and guide me on my ear through voice. Right. So this is another interesting application. For dyslexia, there are like many different apps. And I think for those from India, the Madras Dyslexic Association has created an app, and there are many different apps like that to kind of improve reading skills. And if you look at Google Store or the Apple Store, you will see many interesting apps. So what I would say for the reading is there are so many different aspects of reading. You can go, if you can go search look at the rating. If you could see, what is the rating, download the app and see whether it works for your child. Right? I would start by the most downloaded apps first, and then figure out what works for me. So you could see that there are like many different apps for dyslexia. So there is, this is another app. In this case, of course, it's kind of limited by the text that's already loaded, and there are also apps where you can load the text. Right, so it kind of makes it friendly for students with dyslexia. Right, we will send all of these links, when we send the slides to you. So this is an app. This is a very interesting company called Autismo, and so they have kind of created all sorts of stories for alternate communication, as well as games that are really valuable for children with autism, but also with other difficulties. So very interesting, very interesting company. I'm going to quickly show what are the various things they have. So they have all of these, right? So each one of them is like a game that a child could play, right? So a bunch of different stories, and for different aspects of learning, right? So this is one. For children with dyscalculia and dysgraphia, this is a really good tool, where it helps to learn the concepts in maths without having to write, because sometimes the challenge is like, when I can't read what I've written, it kind of becomes doubly difficult for the child. And this app helps to solve this problem. But what these guys have done is really cool. They have done very advanced maths as well, like children for all ages, basically. So from younger ages and up. Right. So this is another app. There are not many apps for dysgraphia, but this is one of the good ones. And I'm quite sure there are some more apps. And so there is like the whole visual scheduling, picture-based scheduling type apps. These are also really valuable for children with ADHD, with autism, and so on. Really, really powerful app. And somebody had asked this question. Sorry, Swati, I'm kind of covering quite a few questions at once.
Of course.
Right, so that we can cover this effectively. So there are like something called Exercise Buddy. This is a really powerful tool that you could use as a therapist or as a parent to help the child move and exercise, right? It's kind of designed for for children too, right? And there are apps that helps to improve memory and attention, right? And Cognifit is this app, and there's Lumosity is another app for doing this, and Elevate is another app for training some of the cognitive skills, right? So so I think those are some of the apps that I wanted to quickly provide an overview of. But Swati, yeah, let's kind of go through the questions, and if I've already answered, I can point back, and if not, then I can talk about it.
Yeah, I think so. You have offered such a rich variety of apps which can be very useful for all the participants. In fact, most of the questions that I had in my list today were asking for suggestions for some of the apps which they can use for some of the other disability or disorder or any sort of difficulties. So that covers it. One question that is very relevant to the slide deck that you just presented. Lalita is asking us, you did talk about the leaky bucket in your slide deck. What does leaky bucket signify? If you could repeat that portion for Lalita, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, it's a very important. I mean, for example, right, in the airline industry, whenever there is like, let's say the plane, when it was taking off, had some challenges, and it has to, it has to abort the takeoff and land again because there was some error. Let's say if that was the situation, what happens is a small group of people, experts is formed, who look at why something like that happened, um, threadbarely analyze exactly what was the issue, and if there is any challenge in the spare parts, or if there is any mistake in the process, that's identified. And once it's identified, it's passed to every other airline who has a, that model plane, right? So this is how we have made air travel very safe. Today, for example, air travel is the safest form of travel. It's actually safer than riding a bicycle on the road. It's safer than, going on a car. It's, it's the most safest. How that safety and how that performance was achieved is by, systematically, every time something good or bad happens, you understand and propagate to the everyone who has that plane. The same thing could be done in education, right? And this is what I mean by leaky bucket. Every time a teacher learns something, good or bad, that stays with the teacher, right? The teacher may be helping one more person to a few more people, but it's very hard to communicate, because having it just in time is very difficult. And as a result, this knowledge that every teacher is gathering is kind of leaking from the system, right? So we are not able to, even at a school level, we are not able to collect it and make every teacher better from the experience of other teachers, right? So that's what I mean by leaky bucket. Hope that answers your question, Lalita.
Sure, it does. Hopefully that Lalita is happy with the answer. The next question that I have is from Nancy. Nancy is asking us if Nancy and both Paul are asking us how to motivate children to explore technology, how to develop their interest. Now that you have shared with us that technology could be a great way for eliminating or solving some of the present day problems. So how can we motivate both children with special needs or children in general to explore technology?
Right. And I think one of the things I would say is that as parents and educators, we should also have the interest in these technologies, right? We should explore these technologies, proactively ourselves, right? And then we may be able to, if the child is struggling in one area, we should kind of go and research, right? The child may not be really good at finding these apps, right? So that kind of comes back to us to be able to find that. And if you say, hey, if you seem to be struggling in this area, try this. And if, it may not work the first time, but after if you try a few times, it might click, and then the engagement would increase, right? Every time the child succeeds, the subsequent interactions become easier. This is one of the myths with the use of technology. Sometimes there is this view that using technology is like cheating, right? But let's say if a child has some vision deficiency, wearing a thick glass, we don't call that cheating, right? So the same way, if I'm a child who cannot read well, then if I'm using like a screen reader app to be able to read, that's not that's actually good, right? So that as long as I'm able to complete the tasks, then I can focus on things where I can do better, right? And not stuck in areas that I can't do well, right? So we can easily substitute, right? So to summarize this answer, I think the very important thing is, as parents and educators, we need to be exploring these apps constantly, right? And try with our children, right? As we try, we learn together, and the children would start to teach us of what is good, what is not good, and they might actually start to research and search themselves and show us, right? So, but we need to kind of start the initial interactions, and this is our responsibility.
I have another that's really important point, that as parents, if they're enthusiastic about technologies, that's the best way they can motivate the children to use technologies and explore it further. I have another related question from Jomil. Jomil is saying that sometimes what happens is parents don't understand the negative impact of technology,
Right.
and especially for children with special needs.
Right.
So sometimes what they do is they use technology to make it easy for them in handling the tantrums or other
Right.
behavior related challenges. So what can you suggest to the parents to keep their children engaged without technologies, or if there's an
Right.
effective technology, what it should be?
Right, right. Yeah, I think there is like an appropriate use of technology, right? And what is appropriate is something that is context specific. Sometimes if as a parent, if I'm very tired and I can't deal with it, and if the phone is going to help me deal with that situation, I should not be harsh on myself, right?
Right.
But if I am doing that every day for a few days, then I need to see, I need to take a different approach with this, right? So we need to kind of find the right balance between being compassionate on ourselves and also being responsible, right? And so I mean, the thing is this, right? um, uh, if we are outcome focused, right, we can solve this problem, right? We if we are if we kind of use mobile phone in general like a babysitter, then that's not a good idea. But if we say that, okay, here is a very specific social skill or a ADL or a reading or a academic skill that I need to help the child with, and here is an app, and I'm going to see what happens to these skills after a few days, few weeks, then I'm being responsible user of technology, right? Then I'm very focused on what I need to achieve, what apps will do that, whether they're doing it or not, and I need to be involved and change if it is not working. But that is the then it kind of gives you the control of how the technology is used, right? At least
Yeah.
in theory, right? So that's what I would say, and I'm quite sure there are a lot of people in the community who would have more wiser answers to this question. And this whole topic of controlling screen time is something that we are passionate about, and this is not something to be answered just in a Q&A. This is a whole webinar, and you would see a webinar in the next months on this very topic, because this is an important topic.
Totally. Totally. Since we are running short of time, I will take one last question for today's session. The next question that I have is, sometimes children with special needs find it difficult to adapt to the changes, and technology is fast changing. So how do we find a balance where technology can benefit the children with special needs and they don't find it very difficult to adapt to the fast changing technology?
Right, right. And so, I mean, I think some of the app builders recognize this this aspect, and this only will get better and better, and particularly as we like the personalization problem that I was speaking about earlier. As we understand more and more about the child, and if you're able to capture the data and use it wisely, responsibly, then then these changes could be managed very well. But there is there is going to be a time where some of these transitions have to be managed by us, right? It's not going to be automatic soon, right? It's going to take some time, but at the same time, that should not be an excuse for not using technology, right? We should kind of test it out in smaller ways, so that we can get better and better at getting the full value of the technology.
Totally. Thank you so much, sir. That was really, really informative. And a lot of people, I'm sure, must have benefited from the piece of information and useful knowledge that you have shared. Before I end today's session, I would once again like to remind our attendees that if you wish to register for the upcoming webinar or workshop from Ability, please find the link being shared in the chat box. Or if you wish to opt for the free membership trial and refer your friends to extend your membership subscription period, or you can also find the link for these two in the chat box being shared with you right now. So before I end the session, sir, your final parting words about today's session. How was your experience?
No, it was great, and I'm just starting to read the chat box. It's amazing to see the responses, and I hope the session was useful, and hope I created some new things to think about for the participants. And I would say that, as parents and educators, let us go search for an app and try an app today, right? So let's try an app would be my parting words.
One fantastic line. Try an app today and you will possibly help your children. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Stay posted about the updates from Ability. Keep an eye on your inbox. That's where we reach out to you for any of the upcoming events or new updates from Ability. And also, some of the participants did mention to us while I'm scrolling through the chat that they are finding some difficulty in loading the membership trial page. Please try reloading it after a couple of minutes. And if you're not able to do so, please do not worry. We are also going to share the link with you via an email. So you can keep an eye on your inbox and you can try loading it then. Hopefully, you would be able to do so easily. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much, Balaji sir, for such an interesting and engaging session. That brings us to the
Thanks a
end.
lot, everyone.